Hello, everyone. Good evening. Today's live is special for two reasons. The first reason is that it is our first featured author live chat of the year 2021. So, as you all know, we took a little break when the year was ending last year, and now I'm really excited to be back doing this with the lovely authors we feature on our platform. And there's always so much to learn from the interactions that we have with them. And it is, of course, special for another reason. And that reason is that today is BTB's second anniversary. Yay! We complete 2 years today. And I think to have this live chat on such a special occasion makes it all the more, a beautiful experience for me for sure. And I'm really glad that on this special occasion, we have an author with us who is loved even at my home. So it's not just at Beyond the Box, but even my daughter is a fan of her books. And as you all already know from our updates, that our featured author of the month is Nalini Sorensen. She's fabulous, trust me. And what has always impressed me about her writing is that she just beautifully brings out her characters, the layering she does. I think she completely makes us a part of the world that she creates. And today I'm really intrigued to know how she manages to do it and how she manages to wow everybody with her stories. So without wasting any more time, let me get her on stream and then I will definitely introduce her to you all as well. Hi Nalini, welcome to Beyond the Box.
Hi, Anupama. I just heard you say it's your second birthday. So happy second birthday to Beyond the Box. I am honored to be here on your birthday. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, for the audience, though you all have already read our post, but I will just introduce Nalini once again for you all. So, Nalini Sorensen is an award winning children's author who loves spending time with children and looking at the world through the wonder of their eyes. She believes that life is too short to not laugh and seems to always attract highly humorous situations in her real life. You would love to know a little more about that. She lives in Mumbai with her husband, two sons, and dog. There is a lot of love, a lot of laughter, and a lot always going on in their home. Nalini has written books across various age groups for children and has been published by numerous publishers in India. Her book titles include Spellbound, Lucky It's Summer, Lucky It's Not Just a Christmas Story, Lucky It's Diwali, While You're Sleeping, Papa's Marathon, Dada's Useless Present, The Star That Saved the Day, Number March, and Alphabet Dress Up. And as you all have been seeing on our page, that we have been sharing a little more on these books as well. So I hope you all are checking out those posts and definitely go and buy her books. In addition to these, she has contributed to numerous anthologies for both children and adults. To children's magazines and has written readers for schools in India. She has attended and presented at numerous literary events across India, and you can catch her on Instagram, Facebook, and of course, we've shared the link where you can find her books as well. So, once again, welcome Nalini, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation with you.
Thank you. I'm really looking forward to it too. And thank you so much for choosing me as your featured author for the first month of this year. I'm truly, truly honored.
Thank you, and it's totally a pleasure. So, Nalini, I want to begin by taking you back to your childhood because Beyond the Box primarily is always dealing with children. So, I thought I'll just begin by asking you your memories related to books and literature. What did you enjoy reading back then? And whether there are any anecdotes or incidents that you can recall now, which you can share with us.
So it's so funny you should ask this because my first memory way back was I must have been in standard 3, 4, 5. And I lived quite close to the school that I attended. My mom is a maths teacher and my mom taught in the school I attended. So my summer holidays, April, May, June, I would go to school and I would help the school librarian every summer. And I know I sound very ancient, but those days there were no computers, and it was all not, you couldn't just scan everything. There were these big, ledgers, and everything was handwritten. And books had to be, you had to put the glue and the hardcover and bind it, and, cover the book and fix torn pages, things like that. And for my services of helping the librarian each summer, my reward or my earnings were that I could borrow as many books as I liked. So that was the deal
Wow.
we had. I would take like huge piles of books and go home. I One clear funny memory is, I think right from the time I was in standard 5, I had my eye on this Daniel Steele book called The Promise, and the
No.
librarian. The librarians are telling me, no, this is not for you. You're not old yet. You're not old enough yet. You're not old enough yet. Till I think I was in standard 9 or something, and then she let me borrow that. But that's an early memory with that immediately came to
Right,
mind.
right, right, right.
In terms of books I read, of course, it was the Enid Blytons. Five Fine Doubters were my favorite.
Wow.
Then there was the Famous Fives, the Secret Sevens,
Right.
Trixie Belton.
Yeah.
What were the others? Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys. I mean,
Yeah.
that
True,
was
true.
the kind of stuff I grew up on. And in terms of writing myself, so I mean, school was, you had a textbook and you went by what was in the textbook. There was not too much scope for creativity in the school
Yes,
those
yes.
years. It was more kind of academic focused.
Right,
Um,
right, right.
but we had one class called social services. There was no prescribed textbook for that, and you had to do all these different kind of projects. It had a big social angle to it, and I clearly remember writing very morbid stories about poverty and things like that
Oh
in
my
my
God.
social service project. I don't know where the projects are, but I clearly remember that was like my channeling of creativity that happened in school days.
Wow, that's pretty interesting to know, because from there to what you're writing today, I think that's like a huge, shift and transformation. So that's
No
pretty
morbid writing anymore.
I know. Right, right. So I just want to tell the audience that if you have any question for Nalini, you can please share it in the comments, and I'll take them up as time permits, probably towards the end of the session, or maybe in the middle if it's relevant to what we're talking about. And yeah, even if you want to just generally share comments about this conversation, please feel free to do that as well, because it's always great to have an interactive audience. That's good to know, Nalini, about how, especially when you were mentioning the names of the books, I could relate to it a lot, because that is what we used to read back then.
Yeah.
Uh, now, how did then you discover the writer in you? Because since you just mentioned that there was not as much, scope of creativity at that time, it was more academic. So when did that happen for you? Was it something that happened by chance, or something that you discovered gradually? If you could just talk a little bit about that.
So it's really strange because when I look back, it was not like a straight line that connected it.
Right.
I actually studied commerce. I graduated, and then I did something completely strange. I joined an international shipping management program with a shipping
Oh,
multinational company. So I studied for 2 years there. I graduated from that program in shipping management, and I got expatriated to Singapore. So I was this containerized shipping / logistics professional. Um, when I was working in Singapore, I met my husband. We married.
okay.
Then we moved back to India. So from Singapore, I moved back to India. I continued working with the shipping company when I was in Mumbai back again as well.
Okay.
And then I got pregnant with my first son. And it was a little bit of a
Oh,
rocky
okay.
pregnancy. And I decided 2 weeks before he was born to quit and to be home and to be home with my baby. I always was an avid reader right through it all, but this was what happened in my life. And 2 years after the first son, my second son was born. And you know how it is with children. Suddenly, my
Right.
world started shrinking, and I was home.
Of course.
Like
Of
after
course.
being in this big job and going out and traveling the world with this big job, I was suddenly at home stuck with these tiny individuals. And the thing I reached out to, because it can get crazy with two toddlers in the house, the thing I reached
Of
out to
course.
was books, and I would sit with them and I would read to them and I would read to them and I would read to them until one day I thought to myself, maybe I'll try my hand at writing for children. I mean, how hard can it be? It's so few words and so few sentences, and it should be really easy. Turns out I was wrong, but the other part of it is the part I was right about was that I kind of knew it would bring me joy. I think my inner child is extremely active and thriving, and I think this channels some of. I truly think I'm a very positive, happy person most of the time. So it's kind of a perfect fit in that sense. I love happy
Right.
endings. So in
Right.
many ways, it's part of my personality. But that was how that came about. And when I look back at my initial my writing in the beginning, it was I was completely stuck on writing in rhyme. So I don't know if it was the Julia Donaldson effect or if it was the Dr. Seuss effect, but I was completely set on only writing in rhyme. Which is why if you see my first two books, Alphabet Dress Up and
Uh-huh.
Number Match, are both in rhyme. Um,
Okay. Okay.
and I remember
That's
my son was 4 or 5 years, and the librarian, they had an American author visiting them, John Coy,
okay. Okay.
who's a really lovely person. And I consider him to be a friend. But the librarian asked him if he could read some of my, I had like 10 things that I had written. I'm calling them things now, but he read them and then he had a meeting with me, and he basically told me to understand the difference between a story and a poem, and
Oh,
to keep an open mind about setting free from rhyme, because he said, it's like this scaffolding that's holding everything together, and if you free yourself from it, you suddenly find you can use so many more words to express. You're not confined.
right.
And I think
Right. Right.
that was really great advice he gave me at the startup days. I also had attended this writer workshop that Duckbill had organized. They had
Okay.
just opened at that time, and I think that kind of opened my eyes to so much more in the industry that I wasn't aware of.
Right.
Um,
Right.
because Anupama, writing is a very individual process. It's you and your
Yes.
laptop at home. Um, I'm a very social person, so I think it was a bit of mixing all of that. That but it all came together. The dots
Right.
all
Right.
connect when you look back.
That's what I
You
was
always
thinking. Yeah.
learn a skill which comes into play later on in life.
Right.
So that
Right.
was how
That's a
the writing
beautiful.
happened.
Yeah, it came all like you said, came together beautifully. I guess in
Yeah,
your case, and you mentioned a very poignant thing that how people assume that writing for children might be easy because of the fewer words and fewer sentences. I have seen a lot of people think that way. They even tell me that, oh, why don't you write a book for children? It will take just 1 hour for you. Like the
yeah.
impression is like that. So I'm sure now that you've written so many books, definitely you know what it takes and how challenging that is too. So we'll of course talk more about that eventually. But there's a question from one of our students, Shrikar. He's posting from his mother's account. And the reason I'm displaying this question is because it is also linked to what I wanted to ask you next. So he's asking, how are you able to identify publishers who support and encourage new writers? Did the publishers accept your first story immediately, ma'am? And that was my question too, about the story behind your first book that ever got published. How did it happen, and what was the feeling of holding that first book in your hand? So yeah, if you could just merge these two questions and share that with us.
Absolutely. So to answer you said Sridhar was his name. So
Shrikar, yes. Shrikar,
Shrikar,
yeah.
I had absolutely no clue. What I did, and I can tell you what I did personally myself, was
Right.
I Googled every publisher. I bought books off Amazon just to
Right.
read up on the process. And all the books I bought at that time, so I was kind of building the plane as I was flying it, because there was nobody
Right.
to ask
Right.
my questions to. I was kind of doing my own research and finding out. So I did buy books, but they were all related to the US market. There was nothing India specific. So
Right.
the initial first round, I actually, and those days you had to send a hard copy to the publishers. So I actually snail mail, put it in an envelope, bought stamps, went to the post office and sent it. You never heard for months. Those who cared to reply to me were replied with a no. I think I still have those rejection letters somewhere in hard copy. Many didn't reply. But then I decided, okay, let me focus on India. So what I did was I Googled and I went onto each publisher's website. They normally have submission criteria or what they're looking for.
Okay.
I don't think any publisher ever is not looking for new authors. But it is a hard road of finding out which ones. I think
Right.
I was wiser along the way. I started doing research of which publishers publish which kind of books. I had a master Excel sheet and I would write these notes at the side. Some were very inclined to education, some were inclined to fiction, some were inclined to non-fiction, but not really educational. Um, so you have to research before
Yes.
you find that fit. In terms of the story behind my first book, which was Alphabet Dress Up, in terms of the creative process of the story behind my writing it,
Mhm.
we were friends with an American couple, and they went to the US on holiday. And when they came back, and I think my sons were 2 and 4 or 4 and 6 years old, they bought them these onesie costumes, Transformer,
Right.
and something else. And my two boys just absolutely loved them. So you just had to pull them up from up down, and it had long sleeves and long pants. They were in these costumes the whole day. And, they were playing in them, they would sleep in them. It was all. But what this led to was every time we went anywhere, my son started pestering my husband and myself to buy them costumes,
Right.
even if it was the small toy shop. And I started telling them that you didn't need the store bought costume, you just needed your imagination. So a carton can be a boat, a pen can be a rocket. You need to imagine it. It needs to be in your head, not, you don't need the physical costume. And that was how I thought of writing Alphabet Dress Up. And I thought of using the letters of the alphabet and having a whole lot of jobs, professions, all kinds of imaginary,
Yes.
like there's a fairy as well in it. But using the backbone of the letters of the alphabet and
Mhm.
having kids play dress up with it, so using dressing up as the theme behind it. And I thought that would be interesting. I thought it would be different from other ABC books in that sense.
Yes. Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
I just thought it would be something different. When I envisioned it, when I wrote, I thought of two children in their pajamas on every page because you don't need the costume. But then, of course, you need difference on each page for the child to be interested and to turn it.
Of
But
course. Yeah. Right.
in
Right.
my head, I thought that they were just in their pajamas or in their nightie or whatever, and using their imagination
Right.
with these
Right.
different jobs, professions, all of that. Holding that book in my hand was the best feeling in the world. I mean,
I'm
I
sure.
still cry every time I hold the first copy of any new book. Um, it's a really, because there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes in it. There's so
Yes.
much behind the scenes that happens for that one book to come out. I remember telling Preeti, the publisher of my first and second book of Fun Okay Please, the CEO of Fun Okay Please, that I will never look at a picture book the same way again, because when you're in it and you see how much goes into it, I think you definitely don't realize how much
Yes.
goes into those 32
Right.
pages.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So well said. And there's a comment from one of the audience members, Haritha Kannan. She liked the concept of alphabet dress up. She says that's interesting. So do check out that book, guys. In fact, all of Nalini's books, the concepts are really interesting. I've also read a couple of them, and I definitely recommend reading them with your kids. And what I truly like about Nalini, your books, is that they are truly different. Like you said, you thought the idea would be different. I think most of your books definitely are really unique concepts. So I must say kudos to your creativity for that. Okay, so we heard the story behind your first book. Now I want to talk a little bit about your writing process. Now, being a writer myself, I do know that so, there's usually, sometimes some writers have a fixed process. Like for me, it just varies. Like if somebody asks me, it's hard for me to say. Sometimes it's very intuitive. Sometimes, yes, there's a certain structure I follow. So it does vary. So what is your process like?
Chaotic. It's
I like
chaotic,
that
it's
adjective.
disorganized. I have little things written on different pieces of paper. No one touches my desk because there's valuable stuff written on tiny, on tiny bits and pieces. It's chaotic, it's disorganized. There are some days when I can do a lot of writing. There are other
Right,
days when there's zero, there's nothing that
right.
comes.
Mm.
Um, but I think what I learned, and I'm so glad I learned this early in my writing career, was to figure out what my thing or
Yeah,
things
right,
and
right.
I zeroed in rather early in the game that what I love to do with my writing is, and you actually picked on that, is
Yeah.
the first thing is something different. You know, so
Yes,
if it's a topic that's been done before, then something different, or like an
yes, yes.
interesting point of view. You know, to write from an interesting point of view.
Right, right.
The second thing I love and which I always like to do is a twist ending, a different ending compared to what you think you're getting. And the third thing is humor. So I think once I zeroed in that this is kind of what I love and what I want to infuse in my writing, it eased the process for me
Right,
to that extent. Um,
right, right.
in terms of my writing, though, I always have a beginning and I almost always have an end because, like I said
Mhm.
earlier, I like a twist ending. And with children's literature, there's very few pages to achieve that if you want it. So you have to start plotting your
Yes,
twist
yes.
early. You can't just leave it. What I do not have is the middle is fluid, but the beginning and the
Mhm.
end I have. I realized the importance of knowing the end after I saw how many stories I started and I couldn't finish because I didn't know where I was
Mm.
going.
Right,
I
right.
learned that the hard way a little bit. But I always have a beginning and I always have an end. I
Mm.
keep the
Makes
middle
sense.
fluid deliberately so that I can hear my characters and I have that much room to have fun with it, you
Yes,
know, to
yes, yes.
intuitively go in a different direction. But it is completely chaotic. There's no other word I can use to describe my.
Right, but great output comes from that chaos. So I guess yes, that chaos is welcome because we get to read great books because of that. And I think there's a question which is very, I guess, in line with what you were just mentioning. So Harita is asking that the process of actually putting the ideas into words, does it kind of happen naturally or does it take time? Like, do you do rewriting, like going back and forth? How does that work in your case?
I do rewrite. I never, so the first draft, I just let it come out. I just let
Yeah.
it come out in any which form. The one thing that irritates me is if I've misspelt a word and I see that red mark under word, that
I
really
so
annoys
relate.
me.
I
And
so relate.
I go
I
back
so relate.
and put the correct spelling. But apart from that, I try not to,
Right.
because you can get very caught up in trying to edit and get the right words in the first draft.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the first draft, I just let it come out. I rewrite and I look for better words and all of that after the first draft is out. Never during the first draft. The first draft is
Hmm.
very raw, and a lot of it I don't use. A lot of it I take out. There's excess of words in the first draft for sure. Children's literature is few words and they have to be specific words. You
Yeah.
don't have the luxury of using of writing hundreds of pages. So you
Right.
have to be careful and you have to, and there's also always that toss up of vocabulary for the age group.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
vocabulary? Because you of course want children to learn new words, but you don't want them to get stuck and hinder the story where they cannot understand and they need a
Right.
dictionary at
Right.
the side. So there's that little balance that you have to
Yes.
maintain. But
Yes.
it all comes quite, it sounds more complicated putting it into words like this. It all
Yeah. Yeah.
happens quite naturally when you're actually at your laptop and typing.
Right.
It all
Right.
seems to flow.
Yes, yes, yes. That's a very valid point you've said. And I think there are also some great tips from what you just talked about for even the writers who are watching us right now, especially if there's somebody who wants to try out children's fiction. I think those were some great pearls of wisdom from Nalini. Nalini, one thing which I was also talking about when I was introducing you, that what really, like I've read Spellbound, and I think what really caught my fancy was the character of the witch. I was was so amazed that the character was so different from the way a witch is perceived. There was layering, there was so much more to her. There were many dimensions, and it was not like that typical black image that we have of a witch. And I was like, wow, how has she done this? So I just wanted you to talk a little bit about the way you create these memorable and well fleshed out characters, and how important do you think is character building when you're telling any story?
Firstly, I just love that you love Spellbound, because I absolutely love Spellbound, and I had a blast writing Spellbound. I
Yeah,
seriously,
I could imagine. Yes,
I
yes,
was
I could
just like
imagine.
laughing to myself as I was typing different things out. I really, 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 absolutely had a blast writing Spellbound. So I just wanted to give you a bit of a backstory.
Hmm.
So
Yes.
from 2014 to 2018, my family, actually, we moved to Australia due to my husband's work, and we lived in Melbourne.
Okay. Okay.
And I did have books continue to get published in India. I never did really submit to Australian publishers, because
Okay.
I wrote in a voice that was very Indian.
Yes.
And Australian parents have a certain way of talking to their kids, which if you don't do it, it does not come through in the
It
right
does
way.
not. Right. Right. Right.
But what I found was, I mean, so not the first year, of course, but the second or the third year, that I was not making that much time for my writing. And I decided to form a writer group. So there was a community Facebook group, and I wrote on that. And we were 8 ladies who would meet. I called our group Yarn Spinner. And so
Oh.
we would meet, and I put the whole structure in place. So basically, it worked like this: that I sent a photograph, and all 8 of us wrote on it. You could write any genre. There was a word count restriction, but um, we never really stuck to it,
Okay.
firmly. You could write any genre, anything, but the picture had to kind of be a central theme in the writing. And a week before we met, all these ladies would send me their stories. You could do multiple stories as well. I would take out their name and put it together in a PDF. So all the entries were together in a PDF. And then I would send that out to all 8. And I had put this grading criteria together. So I think it was word choice, originality, or creativity, just things like that. That I had got the criteria from publishers I had worked with. Um, and so everybody read it, everybody graded each other's, not knowing who wrote what.
Wow, this sounds
And then they
interesting.
sent me their scores, and I tallied the scores, and we had a winner, and that person was responsible for choosing the picture for the next round. So how Spellbound came around was, I had won the round, and it was my turn to pick the picture for the next round. And my
Oh.
oldest son was in a major Harry Potter stage, and he was home. He was not well. Was not in school, and he was doing a Harry Potter marathon in the living room with the volume really loud. And then I got this message. And then I got this message saying, "Hey, you've not sent the picture for Yarn Spinner." So I went, and because Harry Potter was going on in the background, I Googled and I sent a picture of a wand.
Oh.
That became the picture for the next round. So the first chapter of Spellbound was actually not word for word, was actually what I wrote as my submission for Yarn Spinner. All those
Oh.
years I
Wow.
had
No, that's
about
some story. Wow.
that was how that entire thing came about,
Right.
And so that was so I also I just wanted to tell people this, because you might write one thing for a completely different purpose,
Right.
and
Right.
it ended up in a completely different purpose. It ended up in a
Absolutely.
completely different space, because that character really stayed with me. The changing pimple, I don't
Yeah, that was so interesting. I
yeah,
know.
it just came to me, and it's because of all the layering and all the details that it stayed with me. And of course, like I said, I might not have even written the first chapter for Yarn Spinner, but it stayed with me enough for me to want to work on it and build it into
Right.
a
Right.
story. Um, so that was the where I came from, with that one. And I initially wanted the witch to be really, really, really awful. But I thought, you need some fun, and you need some. I wanted to break the mold a little bit, and
Yes.
and then I thought, what if instead of making her awful, I made her disgusting? Like, what if,
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Got it.
I love grimy and dirty as well, So that was why I turned it in that direction. With character layering and interesting characters make for interesting reading. Flat characters don't make for interesting
Correct,
reading.
correct.
But that was the story behind, and that was how Biona came about. And then, of course, when I was looking to send it to publishers in India, I had this moment when I thought, should I just change all the names and make them sound more Indian? Anupama, I think we've lost you.
Yeah, there seems to be some issue in my video. I'm just sorting it. You can
Okay.
continue in the meanwhile. I think it should be fine. Yeah.
So I thought of initially changing the names of all the characters and making them more Indian. But I stuck to my guns and I stuck to the original names because I thought fairy tale. You have to have those kind of names in a fairy tale for it to feel like a fairy tale to the child who's reading.
Yeah.
And I really did want, what I wanted to do the most with this book was to offer children alternatives to happily ever after.
Right. That was really a great twist, unexpected. And trust me, my daughter, who's 6-year-old, also loved that twist. She was like, finally, there's this fairy tale story which has something really interesting, which the kids can actually relate to and, take a different message from. So that was truly commendable. And it was done in a very fun way. I mean, that's what I liked in the book, that even though there was some kind of an inherent messaging and to make it today, but it was all done in a very fun way. So it's not like there was somebody preaching about anything. So that was really nice. So audience, in case you have any more questions, you can post. We have a few more minutes left here with Nalini. So make the most of this opportunity with her. So Nalini, now, of course, we spoke a lot about your books. So now what I wanted to just ask you is that at Beyond the Box, of course, we interact with a lot of kids, but there are also adult writers who follow our platform. They're new writers. They are wanting to learn, and they do attempt different genres of writing. So as somebody who has so much of experience in this field, what are some of the tips or suggestions that you would like to give the children as well as the new writers? Maybe some do's and don'ts based on your experience, which something that you've learned along the way, which you think you can share with them.
So I think what will save you of lots of time and what will help you become a better writer is if you can zero in on your things. Like I had said earlier, I kind of early on figured out humor, figured out twist ending, figured out different, unusual point of view. If you can broadly get a couple of those, it helps you get better at your craft, at what you want to do. I think another tip I could give everyone is observe. Like there's so much. You can't accurately describe a child throwing a tantrum if you've not experienced it or observed it happening. How they fling their hands, how they bang their feet, how they throw their head. Observe. It's so funny. I find myself observing all these completely random, strange things. Like in the morning, before lockdown, in the morning when I would walk my dog, there are these 2 teenage boys in the building who would leave for school each morning, and it was quite clear that one of them was always, I think the elder brother was always angry at the younger brother because maybe he was late or whatever. So, but I would be there just walking my dog. I don't know these 2 boys at all. I still don't know them. But teenage boys, they're grumpy in the morning. There's barely a smile. I mean, they tap the dog. There was barely a smile for me. But there was one morning in particular when the older brother was just furious with the younger brother. And the way, I'll never forget, thin, tall, lanky boy, the way he stomped his feet and he got in, he sat beside the driver, he banged the door. And and then there was the younger brother, not fazed in the least, still walking slowly. He went walking slowly.
That's an interesting observation.
More, but observing, because you can't describe it in a believable manner, or even if you want to put humor in it and exaggerate it, you can't describe it unless you've observed these things at play. So I think observation is key. I think reading, read greedily, read what you love to read what you do not love to read. because
Hmm.
so many lessons there, right? If you don't like it, then
Yes.
ask yourself, why do you not like it? And I always
Right, right,
like, I always like after I read a book to try to think what is it I liked about it. I'm not the best reviewer, but I like to reflect and find out what I
yes.
liked about the book. When I'm reading, if I come across a good sentence, I always pause and I reread it and savor the words, because I think there's something about word choice
Right.
and sentence formation that can be so interestingly done.
Very true.
Um, and a reader gets it. You get that
Yeah.
final message.
Yes, yes,
Um,
I completely agree with that. Right,
and the
right,
last tip
right.
is right, of course, right? Experiment, try. You never know unless you get your bum in the seat and start writing. So you have to do that little bit. But those are my tips or my do's and don'ts.
Yeah.
Don't get discouraged is my don't.
Hmm.
Don't get discouraged. Don't let a rejection get you down. Writing is a very personal process. You put a part of yourself out there, so it's only normal that you take rejection personally as well. But you have to understand, it is the industry, it is the way it works. Not No two people are always going to love the same thing.
Yeah.
I try to tell myself it is them, it's not me. um,
Yes, yes, yes.
Keep going, right? If you can learn, if the publisher has been kind and generous enough to give you feedback of, I think the most frustrating thing is when you get these vague rejections from publishers when they don't tell you why. It's very, very hard to digest because you're hungry and you so want to see your book out there, and you don't
Right.
know why they rejected it. They just say it does not fit into their schedule, or they're full up, or something like that. If you can get people who can give you critical feedback, that's a really, really, really positive thing to have. I have friends who will tell me it sucks, but I'd rather hear from them than hear from a publisher at a later stage.
Absolutely. So
So,
true. So true.
if you can build up your network with getting people who can be honest with you and don't
Right.
give up. That's the,
Yeah.
the biggest don't, just don't give up.
Yes, I think those were great tips, great suggestions, and I hope everybody has made a note of all that. I personally, also as a writer, have made a note of some of those things in my head too. So, thank you for sharing that, Nalini. There's a very interesting question from Shrikar. As a child, I think that's something that he has noticed, that stories ending with happily ever after, and he wants to know why happy endings, like he says that to make a great impact, we can also have a sad ending. So he's just asking whether he's wrong in doing
Not
that.
at
Like, in
all.
thinking like that.
Not at all. You are completely right. It's just in the children's literature space you tend to have a happy ending. But you are absolutely right. A sad ending can have as much of an impact, if not more. A sad ending sometimes stays with you in your heart for a lot longer. But in the sphere of children's literature, most picture books and early chapter books, which is the area I write in, tend to end happily, not sadly.
Right, 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 right. That's. I hope that answers your question, Shrikar. And there's a question from Tina Bhaktiani, which was also my next question for you. Can we get to hear something about your upcoming books? So yes, what is in store for your little fans? What can they expect?
So I'm completely doing something different. I'm writing a collection of animal stories
Oh,
for a publisher. I'm about three-quarters of the way done, with surprise endings. With surprise endings. That's the
great,
animal story
great.
collection. I'm dreaming up new things for Lucky. And at the back of my mind, I really genuinely want to dream up another fairy tale remix,
Great.
because I had so much fun writing Spellbound, and I think our kids need to read
Yes.
more of these fairy tales that get turned on their heads.
Yeah.
So that's what I have planned for myself for this year. Let's see if it comes through. If it doesn't, it might not.
Yeah, no, we are really excited and looking forward. Also, to tell the audience that the review of Spellbound also will be published tomorrow on our website. There was a little bit of a delay in that because we also had our second anniversary celebration
Of
post and a
course.
lot of other things going on. So Trisha Rath, one of our students, has done a beautiful review of the book. I'm sure, Nalini, even you will enjoy reading it. So that will be up tomorrow. Do check out the review as well as the book. Now, so before we say bye to Nalini, as always, we do a little rapid fire just to know you a little better. So this is just a fun rapid fire. And I'm a very nice host, so I'm not going to ask you tricky questions. I'm going to ask you all easy questions. So I hope you're ready, Nalini.
Sure.
Okay, so here goes my first question. The first question is, which character from your own books would you love to spend a day with?
Fiona, for sure.
Yeah, that would have been my choice too, for sure. Okay. Spellbound or the Lucky Books, which was the harder one for you to write?
Hmm. I think Spellbound.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah, I'm
Spellbound was
sure.
harder
Yeah.
than Lucky.
Yeah. I guess because also it was you were taking on an existing tale and then giving your spin to it. So I'm sure that must have been
It was
difficult.
harder than one. Lucky
Right, right.
was only the first Lucky was harder than the others to get
Okay.
the perspective and to get the characters in place. Once we had that, it rolled quite easily.
Okay.
Actually,
Okay.
it was, and as a team, it went really smoothly. Lucky.
Okay. Lovely, lovely. Okay. If you could interview an author who is alive today, who would that be and why?
Controversial. I would interview J.K. Rowling.
I understand why you said
I
controversial.
would ask her why she has done certain things.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. Actually, that would be interesting because I'm sure we all have an opinion on that, and to just maybe hear her,
Yeah,
talk about or just, yeah, I mean, maybe, yeah, that would make sense because even I have been a fan, so I relate completely, to that thought in our heads about it. Yes. Okay. Which book of your own made you laugh the most? I think you did mention Spellbound, but yeah, is it Spellbound or another?
Spellbound, and the other one that made me laugh a lot was Lucky It's Not Just a Christmas Story. I
Okay.
really laughed with that one. Because
Okay.
there was so much madness going on
Right.
at that festival with the mother singing and the plotting of the mother of a puppy, and there was just so much going on. It was also a little bit
Right.
crazy.
Right. True. Okay. And the last one in the rapid fire is coffee or tea. What's your magic potion when you write? What do you prefer?
Coffee in the morning and tea in the evening, and I'm not lying. This is the truth. I promise you. I have
Oh my
one
God.
cup. I have
Now
coffee
that is the
every
most
morning.
interesting answer I've got to this question.
I have I have only one cup of coffee. The world cannot handle me with more than one cup of coffee in the morning. And in the evening,
Oh,
I have lemongrass chai.
now, that's nice to know. So yes, that was our way to know you a little better. Nalini, I must say I had an absolute blast talking to you today. I had so much fun. Thank you for taking out time to share so much about your writing process, about your books, and about your life in general with us.
Thank you so much, Anupama. Thank you for having me, and thank you for everything that you've done this past month for me. And congratulations again on your second
Thank
anniversary.
you. Thank you. It was an absolute pleasure. And thank you to the audience who joined, who were asking questions, who were sharing comments. It is always you all who make these lives even more fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for your time and for joining us.
right. Okay, then. Bye. So I'll see you
Bye.
soon with the
See
next
you
featured
soon.
author of the month of February, who's another interesting author with an interesting book. So, yes, we'll meet soon again. Till then, bye, everyone. Bye, Nalini.
Bye.